Very good morning to you, Sunday morning coffee on Past the Wire TV. I am Big Race Jim, brought to you each and every week by our good friends at AmWager, Shorebet Coffee, and Pleasant Acres. Thank you for joining us. Huge day all around the country. We had plenty of good stakes racing at Keeneland, plenty of good stakes racing at Aqueduct, and plenty of good stakes racing at Santa Anita. And I'm not going to show any replays, but I will talk about a couple of different things, and we'll split this up. This will still be brief. You know me. I like to keep things moving, right? Get you in and out of here in less than 30 minutes, hopefully sharing some good insights. Um, we had a lot of the final preps for the Breeders' Cup um, over the last this weekend, and I want to focus on the juvenile and the juvenile fillies because I think it was interesting. I was doing a little research earlier, trying to think like just in my mind, I had this theory, this idea that the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner does not often come from New York. And I was right. The last Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner to make their final start in New York and win the BC Juvenile was Good Magic in 2017, which that's a good 7 years ago, 8 years ago. And I thought that was interesting because that champagne prep is quite popular, and for whatever reason, those horses don't move forward or haven't had much success in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And I feel like whatever track is hosting, whatever region is hosting the Breeders' Cup, the horses in that area tend to fare a little bit better. And I think we've seen that in the last couple of years with the Breeders' Cup being held out on the West Coast. Um, think about last year, Citizen Bull, West Coast horse. Um, the year before that, I forget who won the juvenile. Um, Fierceness. Oh, I guess he did prep in New York. So I guess I guess there was two. But at any rate, you get the point. 2 out of the last 8 years you know isn't great. I guess I don't know what is that. It's 25%. Um, which I guess in horse racing isn't all that bad. Interestingly though, neither one of those horses, Fierceness or Good Magic, won the Champagne. In fact, I think they both kind of ran like crap in each of those races. Um, so maybe there was somebody that you liked in the Champagne um, on Saturday that didn't run all that well. That might run well in the Breeders' Cup. But I do think that the horses in that area where the race is being held have an advantage. They don't have to travel. They're in their home surroundings. It's, a basic home court advantage, right? Forte prepped in the Breeders' Futurity in 22, right? Was it 22? And at Keeneland, and he won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile at Keeneland. So I think when we're handicapping these Breeders' Cup races, I do give a little bit of a positive uptick to horses that are located and prepping where they are hosting the Breeders' Cup. Now, also interestingly enough, so that just going back to that last point, take a really good look at the American Pharoah. I think that would be an interesting race to study and dissect, along with the Breeders' Futurity. Those two races have have proven to be pretty successful over the years for Breeders' Cup Juvenile winners. On the Philly side, also interesting that the Frizette has been a positive prep for a lot of winners. So who was it today? Iron Orchard for Danny Gargan, and I remember getting a text about that horse over the summer. Now I'm gonna have to look that up now. Uh, but yeah, so she won today. Yeah, and on she ran on the day I was at the track, Saratoga, on July 3rd, and I got a text about her that she was going to win. I thought she looked pretty good today. You know, be be pretty impressed. You know, you like to see these horses like kind of engage, right? And show that they've got a little bit of fight. Um, so I think moving forward for her, that would be certainly be a positive. And kind of contrary to my earlier point, with the juveniles, New York preps haven't traditionally have not been super successful. On the female side, the Frizette has been a rather successful prep spot for the juvenile fillies at the Breeders' Cup. So another thing to consider there. I feel like we give a lot of credence to these Keeneland races going into the Breeders' Cup. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but especially on the Philly side, it feels like New York-based Phillies tend to do rather well. And again, I could be wrong. It just, anecdotally, it feels like New York-based Phillies do a lot better than the male Colts, um, New York-based in the Breeders' Cup. So, what's my point in all of this? I think trends do matter when it comes to the Breeders' Cup. And a lot of times you hear the argument, and I get it. I understand where the people are coming from. The argument is that, well, it's a different year, it's different horses, it's a different pace makeup, it could be a different track, blah, blah, blah. And and I think that I agree to an extent. But if you spend any time around horses, you spend any time around barn, you spend any time around handicappers, that has got to be some of the most regimented and cyclical, routine oriented, structure based, whatever you want to call it, group of people and animals and an industry as a whole. So yes, while the horses themselves change, while the trainers change, while the pace makeup changes from year to year in all of these races, the path to get there is almost always the same. And needs to be, I think that needs to be considered. So when you start seeing in the next couple of weeks, um, you know, whatever, New York based Phillies are whatever, 35% in the Breeders' Cup over the last X years. I don't know if that, I don't even know if that's true. It just feels like it could be true. Um, I think you have to give credence to something like that. And on the contrary, when you say no winner of the Champagne has won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile in at least 9 years, 10 years. I didn't go that far back. Um, but I think you have to pay attention to stuff like that. And I probably just put the winner of that race into the winner's circle in the Breeders' Cup by saying it, but I think trends matter when you have this event, this singular event that everybody is pushing for throughout the year and takes a very similar path to get there. I think you need to pay attention to those. So those are my two things. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll start looking at some of these fields, how the things start shaping up for the Breeders' Cup. But right off the rip, coming out of Saturday's racing, look at the West Coast and Keeneland preps for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Like I said, no Champagne winner has won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile in a really long time. Fierceness and Good Magic both have run in the Champagne, but did not run very well, and then were able to rebound and um, win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. On the other side, in the Frizette at Aqueduct, Belmont, that race typically ends up being a key race in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. So something to pay attention to. If anybody's been tracking trips on pastthewire.com, they've been enjoying a preview of Pace Points. And today we launched Pace Points for the Past the Wire community. And we're going to take a quick break right now. But when we come back, I'm going to show you how it could have helped you find Rhetorical in that turf mile at 9-1. So when we come back, I'll break that down. I'll explain where to look, how to look, and how I use it to find horses like Rhetorical.
This year, for the Past the Wire annual seminar, we're going to change things up. Why? For you. Everything I cover in the seminars in a clear, concise PDF you can download, print, read off your device, anything you like. Everything, and I mean everything that we cover in the seminars right at your fingertips. Nobody does it better. And if that's not enough, if you join and ride with me, a private, members-only Q&A where you can ask anything about the Breeders' Cup, get answers, and sharpen your play. Secure your spot at pastthewire.com and try and make this your best Breeders' Cup ever. I'm surely going to try and make it mine.
right, here we go. So, for starters, if you haven't been following along, what is pace points? Pace points from Past the Wire is the brainchild of the Pick Six King, John Stetton, nice guy, Eddie C., and myself. Let's see if I can share my screen. So basically, what it gives you, and we're going to look at race 10 here. So basically, what it gives you is your first fraction rank and your last fraction rank. And what that means is how fast these horses are going to be running early, right? So you have Howard Wallowitz be up on the lead. You have Epic Ride up on the lead. You have Beach Gold up on the lead. And that was freaking nailed. Like that nailed it. Those three horses, those three horses set the pace. Um, this Diego Velasquez, Wood Shauna, and John Quill have nothing in there because they're foreign shippers, and we don't have the data to come up with our rankings. So basically, Howard Wallowitz, Beach Gold, Epic Ride, those three were up on the front. So this first fraction rank allows you to kind of see how this race is going to shape up. Now, does this mean Howard Wallowitz is going to be first and Epic Ride is going to be second and Beach Gold is going to be third and Donegal Momentum is going to be fourth going through the first quarter, first half mile? No, no. This just means this is our ranking of who we think is going to be fastest early. Now, I think you have to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. Like it's not going to it's not going to pick the exact order of horses at the beginning of the race, right? That's not what this is intended for. It's intended to be a snapshot so you can see how the pace of this race is going to set up. The last fraction rank is who's going to be running fastest late. Program trading closed fairly well. Brilliant Birdie. Rhetorical, we know, closed exceptionally well. And here's what I think is interesting. And again, one of the keys for handicapping in general is you handicap the race, you bet the race, and then you watch the race again, right? And you take notes and you see what happened and where maybe your handicapping was off, or maybe something you didn't notice something in the PPs that presented itself during the race, or whatever, right? A million different things. But you got to go back and watch, and you got to take notes. You got to try and figure out what happened. So, as I was doing that with this race, a couple of things stuck out to me. Program trading, highest last fraction rank. Makes sense. Great closer. Brilliant Birdie, another solid closer. This Rhetorical, right, at 9-1, as the third fastest closer in this race based on our algorithm and projections. That's got to get your ears to perk up. So then you look at these three, right? And what happened? You can almost tie it back to the first fraction rank. You can say, okay, if this is right, all three of these horses are going to be relatively in the same spot Rhetorical ended up getting some better positioning, in my opinion, throughout that race. And he had first run and was totally in the clear. And I believe that was because he was ahead of program trading and Brilliant Birdie going into the far turn, coming out of the far turn, and had a clear run at the leader, who was it Howard Wolowitz that was up there. I think so. And Rhetorical was able to run them down. So when you have 1, 2, 3, right? Rhetorical, in my mind, makes sense looking back at it now because he had first run and was going to get the jump on these other two. So is this a pick sheet? No, it is the furthest thing from a pick sheet. This is a snapshot of, in our estimation, based on our projections and the data that we gather, who's going to be running fastest early and who's going to be running fastest late. And again, I think this is a great example of Rhetorical, how you can tie that late fraction rank back to the first fraction rank and see who you think might get first run and get a jump on the late runners. And that is exactly what happened in this turf mile at Keeneland. So a valuable tool is available. Passthewire.com, $15. You download it and you get every single race, all our rankings for all of these horses. And again, this was a maiden, I believe, so not a lot of data to go off of there. But for all the other races, you've got all of this useful data so you can see who's going to be running really good towards the end and how that helps, especially in turf races. We know it's really a closer's paradise. So I just thought this was a really good example with Rhetorical that I wanted to share. Hopefully you found some value in it. And if you purchased the pace points today, thank you. We greatly appreciate it. All right, I'm going to leave it there. All good stuff. Great racing. Everything's picking up now. Last couple weeks heading into the Breeders Cup. Hopefully you found some value on this show. We'll be back again next Sunday to do it all over again. Sunday morning coffee only on Past the Wire TV. I'm Big Race Jim. Thank you. Shore Bet Coffee, AmWager, Pleasant Acres, and we'll see you next week.
Go.
Here comes journalism, here comes sovereignty, and they square off, heading to the final for sovereignty wins the Derby!
You're watching Past the Wire TV. Hit that like button and subscribe to Past the Wire TV. Nobody does it better.